When I think about anything, I think what's the greatest possible outcome? What preconceptions limit that outcome? What actions would ensure that outcome? I always think about that all the time, whatever it is, even driving. I always think about that. When I think about the ocean, and the one silver lining perhaps of climate change is we have a new ocean that's going to be more widely enjoyed than ever before. My first thought, because I'm at Google and because I'm the kind of person that would be at Google, is I think about the people of the world. I think of the ocean as something that belongs to people. And I want to know, how can we connect people to their ocean? That's the first thought. Like, if governments are a reflection of the will of the people, then good behavior is going to be required to have a public interest in the ocean itself. So I think, how do we connect people to the ocean? How do we take them there? How do we make them feel the majesty of it? How do people understand it? How can scientists do a better job both of learning and of sharing to direct and encourage public thought and will? So those are the things I think about. And one of the things I'm proud of, Jennifer, who's here with me, she set up this Google underwater Street View system, and that picture of that particular turtle is the most seen image underwater in the history of mankind. Okay? Now I guess number two would be Jacques Cousteau. He did some. The thing is, there's a picture from the Apollo days of the Earth from the moon. Everyone's seen that picture. That's the most seen picture. Underwater, that's the equivalent picture, which in a way is kind of sad because that isn't the only good thing in the ocean, right? That just shows you how little we know about the largest part of our planet and how little attention we give to the most fragile part of our planet. So at Google, we think, well, what can we do about that? And what do we have to offer? Well, what we have is we have computers, okay? So this is half of a Google data center. It's about 50,000 computers in a room. And just so you know, when you do a Google search, it goes to one of these rooms, and your search goes to every single computer in parallel. They each do their part of the internet for your search. It all comes back together again, and it comes to you. So we do that every time you do a Google search. Use all of those computers. The lights flash whenever you do a search. So we said, what could we do? We said, well, if we just had data, we could really do something. So we met some people, a company called Space Quest. They built these little baby satellites that you see here, and they launched it in Russia. And it's been collecting data now for quite some time. And what you'll see in the background here, you'll see emerge some red lines. And those red lines are tracks of ships, and those ships move over time. And this is an example that has long been sort of possible for governments, but usually in important theaters of conflict or in conflicted areas or in nearshore ports and harbors. But the idea of a global situational awareness of where every ship is, not the word every, hopefully you see some red there. Yeah, so in the St. Lawrence Seaway you see some action, and so you'll see some more and more. So the notion of every here is not every, because not every ship is instrumented to voluntarily contribute its location. Not every ship, for example, AIS, not every ship is instrumented in the Icelandic method of a different kind of signal. In some ships, nefarious, criminal, unauthorized, illegal fishing ships turn their AIS off. But nonetheless, the ability to slowly measure and observe every ship at sea, every single day, several times a day, is the gateway to a better kind of stewardship of the oceans worldwide. It's simply you can't manage what you can't measure, and if you can't measure ships, then you certainly can't measure how ships are used for fishing or otherwise. So here we have this planet of data about where the ships are. Space Quest helped us do that. We took that same data, the same technique, and applied that to a larger set of data, tracking buoys in the ocean, which gives us currents, tracking shipping around the world. And what you can see here is the Earth is alive with ships. And we all know that, those of us that love the ocean, but most people don't know that. So here we can help 1 billion people a day, our users, understand what's going on in the sea. And more importantly, I think, not only to increase their interest in the sea, but we can help governments and others take action. If you see people from some other country coming to the edge of your EEZ and parking their big fishing fleet, and then suddenly their AS goes off, and then 2 weeks later they go back home and they unload a ship full of fish, then maybe your ambassador should call them, right? And this kind of record is the starting point for an interesting conversation between government officials. And it's public data, so it doesn't betray any unshareable national technical means that make otherwise prohibit open sharing of such information. And this is actually not moving, it's moving beyond radio data, but also visual. This is video taken from space by Skybox. This is a satellite photography of taking motion video that we bought this company a few months ago. These guys have done a great job of advancing the notion of how much the Earth can we see. They have 2 satellites now, but when they get to 30 or 40 satellites, they're going to have a synoptic view of the planet every single day, what things look like. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is our planet is half clouds, so they'll have a good view of half the clouds as well. But still, places like here's a ship moving in the video, natural effects. So the idea of a world that you can see from space that's observed all the time, the European Space Agency's Sentinel satellite with a radar satellite that sees through clouds all the time, AIS tracking all the time, and all this data being collected and presented to anyone who cares about it for fisheries management, for interdiction of illegal transshipments, whatever it is, that's the present reality. So if you're sitting there thinking, someday that will be great, then what you're really doing is you're stealing from your country the results that you already could give them. This is a today thing. This isn't a future thing. That isn't even the new thinking. New thinking is things like this. This is a wave adaptive vehicle that look at the pontoons or the sponsons as it moves here. You'll see as it turns around. It's actually moving its feet to fit over the water and keeping the platform relatively stable. So Jennifer funded that to work on how to capture street view of harbors and not have the camera move around too much. So this is being used in military for swarming vehicles. You know, if you don't like somebody, you can send these after them with machine guns on top. Here in Iceland, the track whale does a different kind of tracking, and it's something very subtle about what they do in Iceland. In case you don't know, one of the brilliance, this is incredibly brilliant. Those of you that are in the political realm, sometimes you know people are wrong, but you don't know what to do about it. It's not so wrong that it's not so wrong you can shoot them, but it's not so good that you want to leave them alone. So what they do in Iceland, because they're so clever at this, is they decided the ocean is very dangerous. The water is very cold. Fishermen that go overboard or ships that sink, people will die. So in respect for safety of life at sea treaties, they have the helicopters ready on a moment's notice. As soon as your signal, your AS tracking signal or similar signal disappears, they launch the helicopters for your ship. They're going to save you. When they get there, if you're not sinking, you pay for the helicopters, right? Isn't that fantastic? That's an economic punitive measure for illicit captains who turn their AS off because they're doing naughty things. But the other thing that Trackwell does that I like is they actually capture the data about the fish from capture all the way through processing, and they print basically a barcode with the fish, so you can know where that fish came from. If the world was like Iceland, that's how it would be at your grocery store. Sainsbury would have that. Safeway would have that. You don't have that because you're not like Iceland, all right? All right? But if you were, it would be. That's fantastic. Now, the other thing that's fantastic is this U.S. Navy built this system called Sea Vision. They let people use it. It's being used widely all around the coast of Africa to track ships. And what's most interesting about it is this MSSIS, this MSSIS thing. These are all the countries that signed on to share ship location data to create a connected, informed planet so that wise governance would be possible. Hopefully your country's on that list. If it's not, shame on you, okay? You should get on that list. If you're not on that list, talk to me. I'm going to spank you. So there are also, another country like Portugal is not a major world superpower, but in the oceans it is, and intellectually it is. They've done a great amount of work, not only in building remote ocean observing vehicles, but in gathering their data together and making them work as integrated systems. So they can send out a dozen kinds of vehicles to see what's actually happening in the fisheries, report back. And they work with many countries and many governments to do that. They've done a really good job about that. And the final point I would make has about governance. So this is the Arctic Sea, the future Arctic Sea without its ice. Only 11% of that has been, or less than that perhaps, has been accurately surveyed. What dangers wait, we don't know. Those monsters that were in the old maps, they're all in the Arctic Sea, okay? So we need a much better regime of measurement, of observation, and the political opportunity as people seek entrance to this sea. To do what President Grimson has done is to say, yes, you can come, we welcome you, we'll share with you, but you've got to play nice. You've got to have an Icelandic quality of fishing. And I hope you'll all accept that challenge. Thank you very much.